And also, if that's blinking,
Jesus Christ!
Well, there's our intro.
Hi! Hello, people. My name is Emma. Welcome to today's podcast.
All right, we got another myth-busting episode today.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm the other guy.
Damn, that's fucked up.
Who's the one with the mustache?
Jamie. That's me.
Actually,
Adam. You're Jamie. You're Jamie. I'm Adam.
Yep.
You're more ornery and I'm more...
Yeah. So if you were to ask a group of people what type of exercise is best for weight loss,
cardio.
What do you think most of them would say? Okay, yes. Cardio. Yes, you beat me to the punch, but yes, I think most people would say cardio. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Just because they feel like immediate fatigue, like they feel like they're getting their asses kicked. Their phone or their watch or whatever tells them they burn more calories.
Okay, so in your opinion, it's like subjectively what they're feeling
what they've been told their whole lives.
That's where I was going, where
Yeah.
it's the perception of cardio is good because it burns calories, you're in the fat burning zone, and I think it's just been associated in popular culture with cardio equals weight loss, weight training equals muscle building. So there's like a clear distinction there. So today, I'm gonna make the argument that strength training is actually superior for fat loss and weight loss in general, and we're gonna go into exactly why. So before we get into it, cardio is important. I think it's something that we should all be doing. Obviously important for cardiovascular health, that's where the term comes from, which is important, but also for having an aerobic base. Being aerobically fit is obviously very important for health purposes, even for recovery purposes when you're doing HIIT or when you're doing weight training. And of course it could be a good supplement for fat loss and as part of like your total strategy for weight loss in general. But again, I think weight training has unique benefits that cardio just doesn't get you.
Yeah.
And in the perfect world, you would do both, but I would argue that strength training is more important.
If you could only pick one.
If I could only pick
If you
one.
have time to do one.
For
I
sure.
agree.
So we already talked about why the perception of cardio. One of the big myths with cardio is this whole idea of the fat burning zone, right? So let me just break it down as simply as I can. Fat burning zone refers to the fact that when you're doing aerobic work, your body is using fat as an energy. If you're doing very low intensity work, your body is actually burning fat to use as an energy. But that's completely overhyped. But the reason that's overhyped is because you're not burning that much fat, right? You're breaking down fat cells for energy. But then as soon as you're done working out, like that's it. There's no more work being done.
Yeah.
When you're doing weight training or you're doing anaerobic training, you're not using oxygen, you're using mostly sugar or stored glycogen as fuel. So you're technically not burning fat, but then what happens is you're burning fat for a lot longer after the workout. So that's just a comparison effect of this whole fat burning zone thing has been completely overhyped.
Yeah.
Don't think about it as like, well, I'm literally burning fat when I'm doing cardio and I'm not burning as much fat when I'm doing weights. That's just an unfair comparison. Does that make sense?
Yep. Something that plays a big role nowadays is people like to wear their like calorie tracking devices, and they'll do their cardio, and it'll say like, oh, 400 calories. They might go strength training and says, oh, why did I only burn 300? What you just mentioned, they don't know that their body is actively going to be burning calories for the next 24, 48 hours.
Yep.
As opposed to cardio where you're done. Like you did your 400 calories, okay, that's it. You're good. Explaining that to people is a little harder because they like to see the numbers, like to see the metrics. So. That's another myth that people should be looking out for.
You gotta trust us experts.
Trust us two only.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a really good point because it's like, okay, do you want to burn a lot of calories in the moment and then that's it? Or do you want something that when you are doing strenuous stuff like strength training or even like HIIT, your body like has like a debt after that. That's the way that you gotta think about it. So it pays that debt by kind of increasing your metabolism for the next 24 to 48 hours, like you said. And then it's a much bigger bang for your buck.
Yeah. You're sleeping and you're burning calories. Like,
Yup, exactly. You're eating your favorite foods.
Banging calories. I'm just kidding.
Oh. So the reason strength training and specifically lifting weights is, I would say, superior is basically for one reason. It's because muscle is precious. Like we gotta think about it as like gold, a gold mine, right? And when you lose weight, we talked about this before, but when you lose weight, you're not only losing fat, you're losing muscle too. It's inevitable. The only way to prevent that, or at least prevent excess muscle loss, is by lifting weights and using those muscles.
Yeah.
So if you remember nothing else about this podcast, it's strength training superior because of the muscle adaptations.
I tell that to people all the time when they're harping on only doing cardio, especially if they're just like they're losing a lot of weight and then they start saying like, oh, why am I so flabby? It's like, okay, it's time to start strength training so you can put some muscle on.
Yeah, and that's like an aesthetic
Yeah.
component. The other one is the metabolism issues, right? We talked about it in our last podcast about how your metabolism actually starts to adapt and slow down. And again, muscle, the more muscle you have on you, it's like a furnace. So you're burning more calories by having more muscle. So your goal when you're losing weight is, can I keep or even gain as much muscle as possible while I lose fat? Because what you really want to do is you want to lose fat. You don't just want to lose weight.
Yeah.
You know, weight loss is like too much of like an umbrella term. It's fat loss what we're all seeking.
Fat loss and muscle building, and I feel like muscle building gets like a bad rep sometimes. People say like, oh, muscle building, I'm gonna get like,
I hate the
Good
term,
luck.
man. Like, can
Good
we
luck.
come up with a better term? Because when we say muscle building, like,
Arnold
you're not gonna
Schwarzenegger.
get bulky.
Oh, I would love to.
No, it's like if you're a beginner and you're overweight, and when we say muscle building, it's just like recomposition. You're gaining some muscle, losing some fat. You're gonna shrink. You're not going to be bulky. That's why I think muscle building. I don't know if we can come up with some other
We'll come up with a new term and
We'll coin it.
We'll coin it. We'll put it on the market. We'll make shirts.
There you go. Perfect. And you heard it here first, folks.
Yep.
So this is a bold claim, but I would even argue that you don't actually need cardio at all to lose fat. And in the past, I've done this with my clients. I've done this with myself. That you can strength train strategically and then be in a calorie deficit, and that's more than enough. Now, would I recommend that? No.
No.
Because obviously cardio is important for many other reasons, and I would use cardio as a supplement, but do you need it technically? No. And a lot of fitness influencers and bodybuilders, they know that. And especially the meatheads is like, well, I don't really like to do cardio in the first place, so let me just strength train, calorie deficit, and I keep my muscle, and then I'm just losing fat strategically. So
now the bodybuilders that say my cardio is I lift weights faster, what's the science behind that? Or are they just
it's just some meathead shit. There is something to like using weights as like a conditioning tool, but I'm a big, and this is going to change depending on what strength coach or trainer you talk to, but I've always liked to separate strength and conditioning. Strength, weight work, and cardio I think should be done differently or on different sessions. So I would just do whatever cardio you like on cardio days, or even on the same day at a different time or after your weights, but I wouldn't blend them together into a like conditioning with weights, and I just prefer to do it the other way.
Is that what HIIT is?
It can be. It can be. I mean, but if you're doing a body weight circuit, would you really even consider that strength training?
You'd have to be an absolute beginner.
Yeah. So for most people, it's just not enough resistance to be considered strength. So in that case, that's how, in my opinion, that would be a conditioning workout where you're doing just intervals, resting very little, heart rate is high, and you're not really lifting weights, but you're also not like running on a treadmill for 40 minutes, which some people just don't like. Okay, so now we're gonna go into some frequently asked questions, and we always look up like what the most popular questions for each topic are. So I'm sure you guys have some of these. How often should you weight train?
That depends on so many things. If you're a beginner, you can get away with 3. I always tell people 3 is the minimum. If
you can make an argument for 2.
You can make an argument for 2, but then I always tell people 2 is more maintenance. If you're trying to get serious, 3 to 4. I think any more than that, people, sure, if you're an advanced lifter, you can do 5. If you have proper recovery, you can do 5. If you got to be sleeping enough, you got to be eating enough. But I would say anything more than that might be excessive, and you're doing more. You could do more harm than good.
We've seen it before. I mean, we train a bunch of people 2 times a week. When you're a newbie, you can get away with a lot. So 2 times a week is a lot better than nothing, and you can see some results. But you're gonna be capped out. Like in a few months, I should say, you're probably gonna wanna, because as you get more advanced with weight training, you need to increase your volume.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. That's why some bodybuilders, they're training 6 days a week, sometimes even 7. So again, you said about recovery, they have to be recovering well. But I would say if you're watching this, you're like, okay, like I don't really have that much time. Okay, do 2 times a week. So yeah, I'd say 2 times a week if you are pressed for time, you have absolutely no time. Of course, it also depends on how much time you do have. Like what if you only have 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Then definitely 3-4 times a week, because we're assuming that you're going to train for an hour.
Yeah, that's what I always assume when somebody tells me how a session's worth of time is an hour.
Yeah. Now we move on to a very common question and one of our biggest pet peeves. Will lifting weights make me bulky?
Yes, of course it will.
Don't you see me? I'm huge, bro.
You're gonna build a bunch of muscle instantly. You're gonna be unrecognizable, and you're not gonna fit into any of your clothes.
20 years of lifting right here.
Yeah, look at that.
These 13-inch arms.
Look at that. Papachote.
Meaty.
That's obviously all sarcastic. The answer is, it's very hard to train to get bulky. You have to eat a lot of protein. You have to work out like an animal with a lot of consistency for a lot of years, which is just very uncommon. It's not gonna happen, and it doesn't happen unless you want it to happen, really. Unless you're busting your ass to build that muscle. Some of us even try to do it and we can't do it, so.
And I think we can assume that most people asking that are women, right?
Yeah.
I've never heard a guy say, oh, I don't want to get, I don't want to
big.
build too much muscle.
Yeah.
And if you're a woman, then you have even less of an advantage when it comes to building muscle because you just have less anabolic hormones naturally.
Yeah.
So you really, that's just not something to worry about at all.
At all.
If you're a woman, and if you're a guy, like he said, we've been trying to get at least more muscle for years, and it's really, really hard. You have to eat a lot.
Yeah.
You have to train like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
You know, there's that quote that's like, being afraid to start weight training and get bulky is like being afraid you're going to become a NASCAR driver by driving your car every day.
I'm always afraid of that.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's
It's very specific.
yeah. As a matter of fact, everyone's always surprised when we do their body fat percentage, we do their measurements, and we realize, wow, I've been lifting heavy and I'm actually shrinking.
Yeah.
Like, how is that possible? It's body recomposition.
Yep.
You're maintaining muscle mass, or you're increasing muscle mass, losing fat, and just tightening up.
Yep.
So you're actually going to slim down.
I want to lean out.
No, tone up. is
Sorry,
the one.
tone up. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
tone up. So how long does it take to see results from strength training on average?
That's a great question. A lot of it has to do with your training history. But one thing to consider is that if you're new to anything, but let's just talk about strength training, but if you're doing something that's new, that's physical, your nervous system is learning the movement first. So first, your body's figuring out how to do this. How do I do a lunge? How do I do a bench press? So in those first few weeks, it's your nervous system learning what signals to send to the body and to activate the right muscles. So what I'm trying to say with that is, you're not actually seeing as much adaptation to the actual muscle in the first few weeks. So you have to get over that hump of 2-3 weeks in order to really start seeing adaptation. So what happens is a lot of people don't even stick around for that long. They're like 2 weeks in, like, man, I still haven't seen the results I'm looking for. However, strength is going to increase rapidly in the beginning if you're new. Even if you come back after a hiatus, it'll still increase pretty fast. But if you're a newbie, you're doubling your weight in just a few weeks or a month. So I would say our clients lose. So let's talk about strength. When it comes to strength, like I said, you're going to increase it really fast in the first few weeks. A few months later, you're going to be doing a way more weight. So you're gonna be stronger for sure. That's inevitable if you're doing a good program. When it comes to increasing muscle or losing body fat, you can expect to lose, depending on your nutrition, anywhere from 1 to 3% body fat per month. Again, if everything's on point, which is great. When it comes to building muscle, now you're looking at, again, depending on whether you're a newbie, if it's a newbie, you're probably looking at a pound of muscle per month, something like that. I know it doesn't sound like much, but for us that we've been training for 20 years, you're lucky if you get 2-3 pounds of muscle a year. That's how long it takes when you've been doing this for so long. But most people listening, that doesn't apply to them. So yeah, it's really exciting because you can see changes pretty fast in the first few weeks and months.
Yeah, and of course genetics has a role to play in that too.
Absolutely.
But we're not going to dive into that.
Yep.
So does someone need to lift particularly heavy? Is there a certain amount of weight that you have to lift to get stronger?
That's a great question, and the science has changed a lot when it comes to that. Let's separate strength and muscle building because they're a little bit different. When you're talking about strength, pure strength, you do need to lift relatively heavy because that's what strength training is. You push your body to like kind of a limit so that it can get stronger. But most people aren't looking to get like as strong as humanly possible. They're looking to get leaner, have a little bit more muscle so it's visible, feel better, have more energy, lose fat. For that general type of fitness, the data is actually pretty nice. In other words, you don't have to lift super heavy to see adaptations in your muscle. We used to think that you did. Now you can go, we know that you go 15, 20, 25 reps and get very similar adaptations, still see muscle growth, still see fat loss. So it's exciting for people, for example, with like joint pain, right? If let's say you're a little bit older, your elbows kind of hurt when you go heavy, just go a little bit lighter, more repetitions, you can still build muscle. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Again, and then if you're a beginner, you don't have to lift heavy to get stronger. You just got to be consistent and you will get stronger. Again, if you're trying to get as strong as possible, then yes, you have to lift heavy, but I don't think most people listening to this want that.
But if you do,
go big, bro. And then last question, is it safe to start lifting weights, especially if you've never done it before?
no. You should make sure you have your firearm ready at all times because it's a dangerous game. You don't want to get into it. No. It's relatively safe, of course. You want to make sure that you know what you're doing and you have somebody that, if you're completely new, I would say do it supervised if you're not comfortable with what you're doing. But of course it's safe. I would say it's even safer than doing most forms of cardio. You're more likely to hurt yourself running. People underestimate how taxing running is on your joints, on your bones, as opposed to strength training, where if you do it properly, I think it's a relatively safe route to take.
I'm way more confident in the fact that it's like very safe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say relatively safe. I'd say it's incredibly safe. Of course, you're gonna be doing ridiculous things and put yourself at risk, but when I say it's safe, compared to what, right? Compared to sports, it's incredibly safe. Everything is slow and controlled for the most part, which means less risk of injury. Sports are dynamic. You don't know if you're gonna land on one foot, you roll your ankle, hurt your knee, whatever. So compared to sports, it's safe. Another thing that people don't realize is compared to inactivity, like you're way more likely to have bad joints, have low back pain, have some sort of issue when you don't work out.
Throw your back out, picking up a pencil.
So in that sense, again, very safe. And like you said, supervised, now you're looking at something that's like incredible. Like what's our rates of injuries are like
Incredibly
super
Incredibly
low. When you're working with a trainer. So, and then if you're a complete newbie and you don't have a trainer, machines
are super safe.
are very safe. You sit down, you do what you got to do. Oh, you're pressing forward. Not really much of a chance to hurt yourself there.
They have safety locks. They have all sorts of mechanisms to prevent these like freak injuries that I know you guys see them on Instagram all the time, but half the time those people are stupid.
Yeah, they're doing dumb things.
Shit.
Also, the way we started this podcast was comparing cardio, and like you said, there's a huge rate of risk of injury when you're doing something like running. Yeah. And for some reason, when people want to lose weight, the first thing they gravitate to is I'm gonna buy a pair of running shoes and go running, which I think is one of the dumbest things you could do. And I love running, and I will encourage anyone to run. But just look at the data. There are a lot more risks of running when you're out of shape, or especially if you're overweight, versus starting with weight training and then maybe walking, doing the elliptical, more joint-friendly things that you can do than something like as dynamic and taxing as running.
And people do it backwards. They're like, oh, I'm gonna start running, and then I'm gonna get into strength training.
Well, we get that all the time. Oh, I need to lose some weight first, and then I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's what we're here to help you do.
That's literally what we do here, and that's what this episode was about. So hopefully you picked that up.
Yeah, hope you learned something, and if you have any other questions or need us to clarify, there's always the comment section. We encourage you guys to comment, and we will be happy to answer any questions. I mean, I know we got a lot of comments, so we did break 40 views on our last one, so we're kind of killing it. So we'll get our YouTube plaque soon. Till next time.